everyone. This is Riz Ahmed, Chief Research Officer here at SAP Insider, and I am thrilled to be joined by Roy Duffin, Managing Director at Accenture. Roy, welcome to the conversation, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Riz. Great to be here. Very excited.
Well, let's get started. We got a really interesting topic with Central Finance to talk about. But first, tell the SAP Insider audience a little bit about yourself, what you do at Accenture, your experience, so they can get to know you.
Sure thing. So I have the fortune of leading Accenture's S4HANA Central Finance capability here in North America. Based out of Philadelphia, although my background is New York today, but I really have the fortune of working with Central Finance on a daily basis across a number of our large clients.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And we're seeing Central Finance really become more looked at by those thinking about moving to SAP S4HANA. Before we begin, can you just give an overview? What's your simple definition of Central Finance and how should people be thinking about it?
Sure. I mean, we really view it as a finance-first approach to S4, and really what we call it's got no regrets optionality to it, which basically means you can move to S4, get the finance function in, and really think about where do you go from there for the rest of your enterprise.
Why are your clients looking at implementing SAP Central Finance right now? What's driving them to really to think about this?
Yeah, and I think this is a case where if you look at the past year, especially with the pandemic, we've certainly seen that be a catalyst for the finance function in general, and that desire to do what we call move to the edges, which is really get out of the just a core accounting and compliance and general accounting type of functions, and really move more and become more of a business partner in terms of planning, analysis, advisory type of roles. And with that, and this new role as CFO, we're seeing it's really brought a criticality, to the role, but and a desire to really move fast, right? And that notion of speed is becoming a differentiator for CFOs. But oftentimes that desire to move fast is actually met by the reality of very complex financial technology landscapes harm that ability to move quickly. So the finance organization is left with needing to answer questions. Okay, well, how can I actually address my critical business issues with this type of landscape? And it really leads to, okay, how do I think about what my platform of the future should look like? And we really see certainly S4HANA Finance as that platform of the future, and Central Finance really enables them to get moving on that journey and ultimately simplify that landscape that oftentimes has grown very complex over the years.
It's interesting. We're seeing a very similar outlook from our research, which is a lot of pain because of complexity, and it's how these systems have grown up over the years, poorly integrated, siloed, and now you want visibility out of them. How do you do that? And yes, so we're seeing a lot from their drivers. Can you talk a little bit about some of the benefits, some of the ROI? What are you seeing from your clients that have made this move? What actually have they gotten out of it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think certainly it starts with establishing, just the technology and data foundation, number one, right? So getting that in place from a central finance one, but then really from there, as I mentioned, sort of the different options of where are the right value drivers for your company, right? Is it something that, you're really looking at a broad-based, corporate management reporting type of solution that's really going to drive out insights that you never had before? So we have certain clients that are seeing great value from just their ability to have now different profitability views that quite frankly just couldn't exist in that old legacy landscape. So that's certainly one. At the same time, we see other customers that take a bit more of a broad-based capability approach and look at the actual operational and transactional aspects of it that can help with working capital improvement through the central processing type of functionality that's available. So I think we've actually really seen quite a mix in terms of broad-based benefits, and I think no client we've seen is ever exactly the same in terms of what their value drivers are. But I think we've seen it kind of up and down the finance function of where is the right area to focus. And with central finance, I think we've seen that, again, flexibility and optionality to be able to pick and choose which areas to really focus on there to get those benefits.
Are there types of, can you talk about process examples? I mean, is it record to report, cash? You mentioned working capital, cash management. Are there particular processes you're seeing people centralize to central finance, or is it just depends on who the client is?
Yeah, no, I think we're seeing more and more certainly looking at going the full war sort of central payments route. It's saying, hey, we're going to do AR, AP, treasury. That is certainly something we're seeing more and more of as well. But I also think, quite honestly, clients are a bit creative in terms of how do I, even if I'm only doing a reporting layer, how do I start to even take some centralized operations off of record to report as well? So how do I do now my account recs, my intercompany, and combine it with other tools that SAP has now in group reporting and consolidations to be able to really operationalize, even if it's just on the record to report layer as well. A general profile of client, though, that's going to look at central finance, and oftentimes it is because they're a complex client with a complex technology landscape, and that's why the ability to go central finance first is desirable for them, because it's able to get them moving and get them headed in that platform of the future direction without needing to go and take this big, massive greenfield implementation for the entire enterprise.
That's an interesting way to frame kind of some of the drivers is large, complex organization that just needs to do something, right? And they don't want to wait years for ROI. They want to start going. So that was interesting
to how do you start getting that incremental value in quick hits, right? Because that's quite frankly what's demanded now a lot of times by the C-suite, right? Is, hey, we can't wait for years to get a return on this. How do I really see it in months versus years?
You've mentioned mergers and acquisitions a couple of times, and we're seeing a lot of that activity as well. What are some of the business drivers that you're seeing, like really kind of increasing maybe the need to do this sooner rather than later? I mean, M&A activity, absolutely, divestitures, spinoffs, but are there any other sort of organizational or global trends that you're seeing driving this need to?
Yeah, I think I would look and go back to something I mentioned a bit earlier, which is really this overall trend that finance as a function needs to recognize that it's not just about accounting and control and compliance and being that doing that job. I mean, that's always job number one for the finance function, and it's critical to have the right tools and capability, but that's really almost running silently in the background a little bit, right? But I think the other trends we're seeing, really it's about maneuverability is one, right? So how does the finance function, again, think about the pandemic over the past year plus, right? How does finance become a bit more in the front seat in terms of being a driver of actual business value? So that's certainly one. I think another one I'd say is just overall visibility and timeliness is as important as ever, right? So how does finance really be a data powered part of the enterprise, right? And not just something that is reporting on what has happened, but something that is really a partner in looking ahead as well. And so, that means that finance really needs to move away from, again, spending time as data gatherers versus spending time really analyzing that data and being a business advisor to the rest of the organization.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And if you talk about how you and your team at Accenture support this transition or transformation to central finance, talk a little bit about that path and that journey, and how does Accenture work with your clients to help them along that journey? And what are some of the areas where people kind of need help and need support, or they start to wander, where you kind of bring them, into focus and set them off on the right path?
Yeah, and I think it really starts with the common challenges that a lot of our customers have, right? Where they say, I've got a very complex financial landscape. I've got, I'm manually drilling down at different levels, and to do analysis, and there's different ledgers. I have limited compatibility across them because there's different data definitions. I have inconsistent processes, and sometimes even manual integrations between a bunch of disparate systems. So all of that is oftentimes led to, like, just how do I even get from there to where I want to be, right? And that's really where to help guide the conversations we do is really, what does your journey look like, right? And as I mentioned earlier, it's never the same for any one company, but really helping to think about, all right, what does your platform of the future look like? And again, that's going to look different for every one of our clients, but really helping them on that, think through what does that journey look like. And oftentimes, again, is it greenfield, brownfield? Where does central finance fit? It's through that whole thought process, right? Which
Top
is
down. It sounds like you go top down all the way through.
exactly. I mean, it's not easy, certainly, because again, a lot of the clients that inherently are looking at a central finance solution are going to be naturally complex in terms of again, their landscape, their organization, their geographic reach, and all of that. So it absolutely needs to start with that vision, and then ultimately, what's the value that you're going to get out of it.
Well, just one or two more questions, and Roy, I really appreciate your time. One is, you talked in general a little bit about some of the customers that you help and what they see as benefits. Are there any examples, and I know sometimes you can or can't use the name of an innovative customer that's come out the other side and has just achieved this great success that you could share or illustrate some points from?
Yeah, sure. Certainly. I mean, I think you look at some of ours that have been through the journey now, right, where they've taken and gone multiple go lives at this stage, right, and truly have insights. And I can think of one retailer and wholesaler that has really just completely reinvented their profitability reporting, right. It's something where, again, mixture of many different legacy systems, many different data definitions in what existed before. And they are now, as they go through a finance transformation and really a broader business transformation, they're able to now report on essentially a product level like they've never been able to do before. And that is, again, not just saving them, that's the case where they're using central finance, not just, again, to improve my finance cost base or working capital or things like that, truly be a growth driver as well. So I think that's, again, another great example where we are seeing the benefits beyond just what I'll call traditional financial measurements, but really see it be a growth driver as well.
Great. Last sort of two-part question is, Roy, what differentiates Accenture from being able to do this with your clients versus others who might be in this field? And what are some lessons that you've kind of learned along the way that you think are valuable to share with our audience?
Sure. I mean, I think when you look at Accenture, we when you look across our businesses and our client footprint, we certainly deal with some of the most complex clients that are out there globally. So I think that that's quite honestly why our work in central finance has lined up well, because we understand the complexities, whether it's through our technology work, our strategy and consulting work, or cases where we actually operate the finance function for a number of very large global companies. So those insights together, combined with our experience to date in leading some of the first central finance programs that ever existed, certainly gives us an appreciation for the complexities involved and the decisions that need to be made along the way, and really feel like we can provide that expertise to our clients along their central finance journey. And I think from your question around lessons learned, I think when you really look at it, again, something that we all need to recognize is that nobody's journey is going to be the same, and it takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of work to define what is your clearly defined value case as well. And as much as you try to get a plan in place, you also need to sometimes plan for disruption as well, as the last year has certainly taught us as well. So, but that's really, I think, where we see central finance playing a big role, because you're not committing to a very large scale, massive transformation across all of your functions. It really lets you start with finance, build a roadmap that can be value driven, but also flexible at the same time, and really get our clients moving on their S4 journey at their own pace, and really start to see value quickly.
Great. Well, Roy, I want to thank you for your time today. You have a lot of great insights and lessons based on real world project experience, which is always great, and on a very important topic that I know our community cares about. So thank you, Roy, for your time.
Thank you, Riz.